$1,000. That is what it costs Ukraine to shoot down a Russian drone worth 50 times that amount, $1,000, against a Shahed that costs between $20,000 and $50,000 to build, deliver, and aim at a Ukrainian city. The cost-exchange ratio is so lopsided in Ukraine's favor that it does not just solve the problem of Russia's drone campaign, it dismantles the strategic logic on which that campaign was built. And it does so using a weapon so cheap that the manufacturer can produce 50,000 of them every month, launched from a platform so unlikely that no military analyst would have predicted it. Crewed by people who are not soldiers, they are civilians, volunteers, 4 ordinary people who looked at a 55-year-old cargo plane, looked at the drone threat descending on their country's cities every night, and decided to do something about it. No military rank, no years of combat experience. Just the decision to take off before dawn, fly an aircraft that was never designed for war into airspace where Russia's drones are now armed with air-to-air missiles, and kill as many Shaheds as possible before landing. As of April 2026, that crew has confirmed 222 kills, using first a minigun bolted to the cabin door, and now something that no military on Earth, not the United States, not the United Kingdom, not any NATO member, has yet fielded in operational combat, underwing hardpoints loaded with interceptor drones, launched from the aircraft in mid-air that seek and destroy enemy drones before they reach their targets. This is Ukraine's airborne interceptor drone launch platform, built from an Antonov An-28, the world's first of its kind, and Russia has no answer for it. In this video, we are going to look at exactly what Russia's drone campaign is doing to Ukraine's cities, infrastructure, and people. Because the strategic purpose of 5,000 Shaheds a month is not just military, it is psychological. How 4 civilian volunteers took a half-century-old utility plane and turned it into the most cost-effective drone killer in any active conflict on Earth. What the P-1 Sun and Merops as 3 interceptors actually do when launched from altitude, and why aerial deployment changes the mathematics of interception entirely, and what Ukraine's airborne interceptor concept means for the future of drone warfare globally, because NATO is already watching and already deploying what Ukraine is proving works. But first, let us look at what those 5,000 drones a month are actually trying to accomplish, because Russia's drone campaign is not primarily a military operation. It is something more calculated and more cruel than that. The Shahed does not need to hit a military target to achieve its objective. That is the essential insight behind Russia's drone strategy, and it is the insight that makes the campaign so difficult to counter through conventional military means. A drone that strikes a power substation plunges a city into darkness in winter. Hospitals lose power. Water treatment plants stop functioning. Heating systems fail. The civilians who survive the immediate impact of the strike spend the following days in cold, dark buildings, without running water, without functioning medical care, without the infrastructure that makes a modern city livable. The military value of the substation attack is negligible. The civilian suffering it produces is enormous, and that suffering, compounded across hundreds of strikes against hundreds of substations, water facilities, heating plants, and distribution nodes, is the point. Russia calls this coercion from the air. What it actually is, applied at scale and sustained across months and years, is the systematic destruction of the conditions that make Ukrainian society function. The goal is not to win a battle. It is to make the war so unbearable for Ukraine's civilian population that the political will to continue collapses under the accumulated weight of darkness, cold, and fear. 5,000 drones per month, aimed not at the front lines but at the rear, at the cities, at the infrastructure, at the people sleeping in their apartments who wake up to the sound of air raid sirens and spend the night in stairwells waiting for the impact. Russia has industrialized this campaign with the efficiency of a production line, and the output is measured not in military objectives seized, but in Ukrainian power outages, hospital blackouts, and the slow erosion of civilian resilience under a drone bombardment that does not stop. And the economics of the campaign are designed to guarantee that it does not stop, regardless of what Ukraine does to counter it. A Shahed costs between $20,000 and $50,000. A Patriot interceptor missile costs over $3 million. A Hawk surface-to-air missile costs hundreds of thousands. The math is not an accident. Russia chose the Shahed specifically because the rational military response to it, a surface-to-air missile, costs so much more than the drone it destroys that sustained defense bankrupts the defender faster than the attacker runs out of drones. 15,000 drones per month is Russia's production target, nearly triple the current rate. At $50,000 per drone, that is $9 billion of aerial threat per year. Ukraine cannot meet that threat with $3 million missiles. The economics of conventional air defense, applied to an adversary producing cheap drones at industrial scale, produce only one outcome: eventual magazine exhaustion, followed by the drones getting through in numbers no defense can manage. Russia built this campaign for a Ukraine that had to fight expensively. It is fighting one that refuses to. Until now, the most economical interception method Ukraine had was ground-based. Until now. The 4 civilians who fly the An-28 are not, by any conventional military measure, the people you would design a combat program around. They have no special operations background, no fighter pilot training, no decades-long career in military aviation. What they have is the choice they made, to take an aircraft that was never meant for war and put it to work in one anyway, and the skill they have developed in the specific, dangerous, improvised discipline of hunting drones from the air at night. The aircraft they fly first took to the skies in 1969. The Antonov An-28 is a light twin-engine turboprop transport, the kind of plane that spent most of its working life carrying passengers and freight between small regional airports across the Soviet Union and its successor states. Close to 200 were built. Fewer than 20 remain operational. No military in the world that had better options would choose to fly one into contested airspace. Ukraine does not have better options. Ukraine has the An-28, engineers willing to modify it, and volunteers willing to fly it. That is enough. The first modification produces a gunship. A 6-barreled M134 Gatling minigun, chambered in 7.62 millimeters, is mounted to the cabin door. The M134 fires between 3,000 and 6,000 rounds per minute. That is up to 100 rounds per second, a sustained rate of fire dense enough to fill the airspace around an incoming drone, with enough projectiles that evasion becomes statistically impossible. The weapon has a proven track record in aerial gunship applications precisely because that volume of fire, directed by an experienced gunner with night vision, produces reliable kills against aerial targets that no single-shot weapon could match. The crew is 4 people. The pilot flies. The camera operator watches an infrared display fed from an external sensor, scanning the surrounding sky for heat signatures that indicate an incoming drone. The gunner wears night vision goggles and operates the minigun. The 4th crew member handles maintenance, clearing jams, and support tasks that keep the system running through a sustained patrol. Ground-based air traffic control teams track the drone swarms by radar, vector the An-28 toward the areas where Shaheds have been detected, and guide the aircraft into interception geometry. The crew does the rest, and the crew delivers. 115 kill silhouettes painted under the cockpit, 2 painted yellow, marking kills too numerous for a single silhouette to represent. A total confirmed kill count of 222 by April of 2026. 222 Russian drones that do not reach their targets. 222 power substations, water treatment facilities, apartment blocks, and hospitals that survived the night because 4 civilian volunteers chose to go up in an old cargo plane and put themselves between the Shaheds and the people below. think about what those 222 kills actually represent at the cost level. At $35,000 per Shahed, as a midpoint estimate, 222 kills represents approximately $7.8 million of Russian military expenditure neutralized. The cost of operating the An-28 and paying the ammunition bill for the minigun is a fraction of that figure. This aircraft with this crew is running a cost exchange ratio that no conventional air defense system approaches. But Russia is watching, and Russia does not stay still. By early 2026, Russia begins arming its drones with man-portable air defense systems and air-to-air missiles. The hunters are armed to hunt the hunters. Russia fits self-protection systems to its strike drone fleet, electronics designed to detect and evade the intercept methods Ukraine has been developing. The An-28's crew is flying a half-century-old turboprop with no armor, no ejection seats, no radar warning receivers, and no countermeasures against the weapons now being fitted to the aircraft they are hunting. Every sortie is a calculation of risk that most people would not accept. Ukraine's response is not to ground the aircraft. It is to make the aircraft more lethal. In April of 2026, footage emerges that changes the category the An-28 belongs to entirely. The aircraft appears with underwing hardpoints installed. On those hardpoints, two types of interceptor drone. Not bombs, not missiles, drones. The An-28 is no longer a gunship. It is a drone carrier, the world's first operational airborne interceptor drone launch platform. No military on Earth has fielded this system in combat. The concept exists in research programs and theoretical doctrine documents. Ukraine is doing it in the field tonight with a 1969 turboprop and a crew of civilians. The first interceptor on the hardpoints is the P-1 Sun, produced by Skyfall. The airframe is modular, three-dimensionally printed and shaped like a bullet, a form factor chosen not for aesthetics, but because it minimizes drag at the speeds the interceptor must achieve to catch its targets. Cruise speed, 300 kilometers per hour. Maximum speed, 450 kilometers per hour. At full sprint, the P-1 Sun is faster than virtually every drone Russia deploys against Ukrainian cities. It does not need to wait for the target. It closes. It detonates in proximity. The Shahed is gone. Cost per unit, $1,000. At $1,000 per interceptor and $50,000 per Shahed at the lower end of Russia's production cost, the P-1 Sun achieves a cost exchange ratio of 50-1 in Ukraine's favor. 50. Russia spends $50 for every dollar Ukraine spends destroying what Russia sends. And Skyfall produces up to 50,000 P-1 Suns per month, enough volume to engage Russia's entire current monthly drone production run 3 times over, at a total monthly expenditure of $50 million. Russia is spending vastly more to build what the P-1 Sun destroys than Ukraine spends on the P-1 Sun itself. The second interceptor on the hardpoints is the Merop's AS-3 Surveyor, a more capable platform built for harder targets. Where the P-1 Sun is speed and volume against the cheap end of Russia's drone fleet, the AS-3 brings an AI brain, an operational range of 12.5 miles, and a 2-kilogram warhead that destroys its target by direct impact or proximity detonation. The AS-3 operates autonomously when needed. Its onboard sensors identify, track, and close on targets without requiring a human in the guidance loop. A pilot can take manual control, but the drone does not need one. At $15,000 per unit, dropping to as low as $3,000 at scaled production, the AS-3 maintains favorable cost exchange against the more sophisticated and expensive Russian drones it is designed to pursue, and the AS-3 is already operating beyond Ukraine's borders, deployed with NATO allies along the eastern flank through Operation Eastern Sentry. What Ukraine is proving in combat, NATO is already beginning to position across the alliance's most exposed defensive line. Together, the P-1 Sun and the AS-3 give the An-28 a layered kill capability. Overwhelming volume for the cheap and numerous, autonomous precision for the expensive and capable. And the aircraft delivers both from a positional and temporal advantage that no ground-based launch system can match. Here is the physics argument that makes aerial launch categorically superior to any ground alternative, and it is simpler than it sounds. A ground-launched interceptor starts at 0 altitude. The Shaheds it is hunting fly at altitude. The interceptor must climb before it can intercept. Climbing takes time. During that climb, the Shahed is covering distance toward its target at 200 to 300 kilometers per hour. The engagement window, the time available between the Shahed entering intercept range and the Shahed reaching its target, is being consumed by the interceptor's vertical transit before the horizontal chase even begins. An interceptor launched from a drone rail at altitude starts the engagement already at the operating level of its target. There is no climb. There is only the horizontal closure rate, which the P-1 Sun's 450 km/h sprint speed addresses immediately. From release to detonation can be measured in seconds. Not the minutes that a ground-launched interceptor needs to reach altitude and then close on a target that has been covering ground the entire time. Seconds versus minutes. Against a target moving at speed towards something that matters, that difference is the difference between an intercept and a miss. The loiter advantage compounds this. A ground-launched interceptor is on a fuel countdown the moment it launches. Once airborne, it has minutes of endurance before it must either kill a target or fall out of the sky. Ukraine cannot launch interceptors speculatively from the ground. The window between launch and fuel exhaustion is too short to wait for a target that has not yet arrived. Ground launches are necessarily reactive. Confirm the target is present, then launch, then race against the clock. The An-28 patrols for hours. It is airborne before the drones arrive. It is on station over the power station, the railway hub, the city, before the Shahed swarm is detected inbound. When the targets appear, the aircraft is already there. The interceptors launch from a position of advantage, close at altitude, on geometry, rather than from a position of disadvantage, on the ground, climbing, racing a countdown. The An-28 does not respond to a drone attack. It is already waiting for one. Now let us look at what this capability, proven in combat by a crew of 4 civilians, means for the broader trajectory of the drone war. Light aircraft and helicopters are already responsible for approximately 12% of all Russian drone kills across Ukraine's entire air defense network. 1 kill in 8 coming from platforms that were not designed for this role and are not carrying purpose-built interceptor systems on the majority of those aircraft. 12% of total kills before the An-28's hardpoint modification was operational from improvised airborne platforms running improvised interception methods. The An-28 is not the end of this development. It is the proof of concept for a doctrine that Ukraine is already beginning to scale. Mothership unmanned systems, larger drones that carry and launch smaller ones in contested airspace, are already operational in Ukraine's arsenal. The An-28 is the manned version of the same concept, and it has now demonstrated combat effectiveness that validates the architecture across both manned and unmanned delivery platforms. Transport helicopters, trainer aircraft, the Yakovlev Yak-52. Every light aviation platform Ukraine operates that can accept hardpoints becomes a potential node in an airborne interceptor network that multiplies the 12% kill share by factors that Russia's production planners have not accounted for. Russia built the economics of its drone campaign on a production advantage that it intended to be permanent. It can produce Shaheds faster than Ukraine can afford to shoot them down with conventional missiles. That calculation is correct. Against conventional missiles, Russia wins the ledger. Against a $50,000 per month production run of $1,000 interceptors launched from a fleet of modified utility aircraft that cost almost nothing to convert and operate, the ledger inverts completely. Russia designed its aerial attrition strategy for an opponent whose air defense costs were fixed and whose interceptor magazine was finite. It is fighting an opponent that has turned the economics of drone warfare upside down using a plane that was built the year humans first walked on the moon, crewed by civilians who volunteered for the job, armed with interceptors cheaper than a used car. The Shaheds are still coming. 15,000 per month is still the target. But every one of them now has to contend with an airborne platform that was not supposed to exist, carrying weapons that cost 1/50th of what they destroy, flown by people who are not supposed to be there. Russia planned for a Ukraine that would run out of options. Ukraine keeps inventing new ones. If you found value in this, subscribe so you do not miss what comes next.